I was putting up plants in my barbecue area and I got sick of eating dirt. Something had to change. If you've got a space that's not working for you, this video should help you redesign it. I'll show you how to analyze what's not working with the space, defining the list of elements you need to include in the space, and figure out the best way of rearranging them. I'm specifically talking about my Permaculture Zone 1. But what is a Zone 1? In permaculture, we talk about this idea of zones, where everything from your house outwards is classified in a zone. Zone 1 being the area right outside your front door, Zone 2 being a little further out, things that need a little bit less maintenance, and so on and so forth. In this video, I want to talk about Zone 1 and how I've redesigned mine to work a lot better for my needs. So the Zone 1 is like where you're gonna visit the most often. It's also the place that's most convenient for you to visit. So if I'm cooking and I just need a bit of mint or basil or whatever other herb I need, it's really convenient if I can just step outside my front door and pick it out of a pot. And that is why I've got a lot of those herbs growing in my Zone 1. You want to have everything that you need to maintain and care for regularly. So this includes seed raising, potting up, small plants. The nursery is basically up here. We've got a lot of things in pots that need regular watering and care. Step 1, if your space isn't working for you, analyze why. When I first started with this outdoor area, we just wanted a nice outdoor barbecue area. We didn't really think about the practical aspects of what else I would need in my Zone 1, which if you're a permaculture gardener like me, means you need to have basically your seed raising area needs to be right by your house. So around the corner here is where I was planning to do all of my potting up and seed raising. So this is where the seed raising house is. It's a little greenhouse. We leave it open in summer with some shade cloth on it because it's a bit too hot in summer, but the rest of the year it's closed like a little mini greenhouse. The problem with this being around here is there's not a lot of space to actually pot things up on. So there's a tank on this side, there's no table, and there's no undercover storage for all of the potting mix materials. So when it rains, which it does kind of frequently here at the moment, all of that gets wet and then it's gross and sodden and hard to move and deal with and all of that. So you kind of want to keep all that dry, and there's not really enough workspace here. The ground's also really uneven. While it's a great place to have the seedlings, it's not a great place to actually put the seeds down because there's just not enough space to work. So that's why I kind of ended up doing it all back under the deck where it's a bit more covered and I have a table. There was a few problems with doing everything around there, so eventually things just sort of migrating into this back corner here. So as you can see, this back area became pretty cluttered and full of junk, and because it was a table in a corner and it's outside, the spider webs were just ridiculous, like all the time. Then I ended up doing all my potting there, which on this concrete ground made a mess. I just was leaving dirt everywhere, and then every time we came to cook, there'd be dirt all over the table. So the space just really wasn't working for us. Everything was on top of each other. What actually catalyzed this was we got a new barbecue for my partner's birthday, and it was a lot bigger than the previous one, which meant we had to do a bit of thinking about how we were going to redesign the space. Step 2, list the elements you need to have in the space and be honest. This includes the aesthetic and recreational things as well as the practical and functional things. At this point, we knew the elements that needed to be here. I knew I needed a potting area that was on a table and somewhat undercover so that I could keep the potting mix dry. And I also needed a place where I could dry and cure onions and potatoes and all that kind of stuff. Step 3, it's time to arrange the elements. Thinking about what elements go well together and what needs to be separated is a good first step. So we sort of needed to separate the eating, chilling out, sitting area from the business, garden, seed raising area. So I knew that was what needed to happen. And when we looked at this space, we have this weird brick area. This was the original deck, was just this brick area, and then this other concrete section was added later. That brick area is raised up at a different level, so it's a little bit of an odd space. So this is the new potting area. As you can see, it's still a pretty dirty workspace, but it's designed to be a functional space, and it is making use of this bricked dead zone that we had before. So I'm now able to have a big bench for my potting up purposes. I've got all of my materials for the potting under here, which is mostly sealed from the weather. I'm also able to dry my onions. They're really tiny. I'm very disappointed with my onion harvest this year. We'll not talk about that. Things I'm saving for seed. I've got some potatoes curing here, and that can all just sit there, and that's the space that's designed for it, and I don't have to worry that it's all over the place and looking messy, because that's what it's designed for. The other thing that's really important to think about when you're designing your zone 1 is which way you walk. So when I leave my house, I walk out this way to my garden. I put my shoes on, they're all around here, and I walk this way towards my garden. And when I come back from the garden, I walk back in this way. And often, when I come back from the garden, I have something like a bucket of potatoes or something. So I can just walk in, put it down, and go back inside. So thinking about the way that you walk through the space is also really helpful in making these kinds of design decisions. Now, I don't walk that way very often if I'm not going to go and sit down and do a barbecue or chill out. So that means that that side of things stays very clean and a lot easier to keep clean, which is what we want, because we don't want to make more work for ourselves, do we? So yes, this is the new potting area. I'm very happy with it. Let's go take a look at the little sitting area. So on the other side of the front door, if I turn right, I have this beautiful sitting area that I can come to. Now I can sit here, I can put my feet up on the table, I can use the table to put my lunch on. We didn't have a table to put food on before when we were sitting out here. We were like balancing on our legs, it didn't work at all. And then if I'm cooking, I take the cover off the barbecue, I do some cooking, I wait for the sausages to cook, I could keep an eye on them from here. There's extra space. It works a lot better and it's much nicer, much cleaner, much more aesthetic, which is everything we wanted in an outdoor sitting area. One thing I haven't yet optimized in my zone 1 is my Pathside Pluckings. So in addition to things that need a lot of your care and attention, you also want to have things that you access regularly. So I've got herbs over there in planter boxes and they're staying alive, and ideally along the walk towards your zone 2, your vegetable garden or the main place that you tend to walk away to, you want to have things that you use a lot or can just pick off and eat as you walk past. So some people have lettuce or strawberries or spinach leaves, things like that you maybe just want to add a couple of leaves to dinner or something like that. My problem here is this wall is a north-facing wall and it gets a massive amount of sun, so it's really hot, and I have not had any luck getting lettuces to stay alive in here for more than like a week. They go straight to seed. One thing it is really good for is chillies, because these chillies stay alive all year round, which is not usual in Australia unless you're specifically overwintering them, but these guys get enough sun and warmth all year round to basically be perennial chillies, which means they do wonderfully here, and I'm very happy with that. So I would like to put a bit of other stuff underneath. I do have a few herbs in here that are growing that I do use. Also needs a bit of a weed, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're making a video, so still working on optimizing that, but thinking about the way that you walk and what you could possibly plant along that walkway to pluck and eat as you walk past, or the things that you need to access often, or things you want to put in your meals often. So I just wanted to share a quick little video on how I've redesigned my zone 1 and how much better it's working for me, because I actually acknowledged the elements that I needed to have in my zone 1, because it is a working space and I'm here all the time and I need to make it work for me and for us. That's what I love about permaculture. It's a process of designing something, seeing if it's working, redesigning, and making it better. It's all about optimizing, and of course, what works for you and your space. So that's my zone 1 design now. I hope this video helped you in thinking about what elements you want to include in your zone 1 and the best ways of thinking about how you move through the space and where you might want to place those in order to best work for your space. It's always an evolving design process, and we'll see how this one goes for me. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a fortnight. If you know any like leafy greens that I could put in a really hot garden bed, do let me know, because I would love to fill this with a few more things that I'm going to access regularly.